All right, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's Friday, April 17th, which means it's time for another Friday Roundtable Extravaganza. And joining me, I can't believe this, but are both first-time guests. One, the host of News Nation's Katie Pavlich tonight, Katie Pavlich, and an author at the Christian Post, Mikale Olson. Guys, welcome to the show. And before we do anything here, I want Mikale to quickly introduce himself. But Katie, I don't know how you have not been on this show before. You mentioned to me right before we started, Fox had you under lockdown. It was hard for you to do other appearances, but this is very, very long overdue. So I'm happy to have you on.
I'm happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
And Mikale, you have been absolutely on fire on X. I started following you about 6 months ago amidst some of the craziness on the right. And you've just been one of the great communicators as to what's really been going on here. Maybe for just 20 or 30 seconds, you could just tell the audience a bit about yourself and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, so I started contributing over at The Federalist about 2024, kind of mid-2024. I did that for a few months. And then I got hired over at Not the Bee as a news writer, kind of contract news writer over there. I did that for almost a year and stopped doing that somewhat recently. And now I'm primarily just over at the Christian Post, writing about the woke right and Christian nationalism and all of this fun stuff that we've all been dealing with for the last year or two. So... yeah.
Excellent. All right, let's leave that there. We'll dive in to the week that was. We'll start with the scandals. Eric Swalwell, a man who for years, literally years, everyone has known banged a Chinese spy named Fang Fang. That's not even what's taking him out. It's now all of these other accusations of rape and drugging women and a series of other things. The video that leaked where there were several people in the room where they think at least one of the people was a sex worker, and it's like, who the hell was taping that thing? And that somebody might be underage. I mean, it's just an absolute, it's like a little bit of everything here. Here's Karoline Leavitt responding to some of the flip-flopping around Ruben Gallego and some of the other Democrats. Ruben Gallego, who said he was Eric Swalwell's best friend.
Look, I think the accusations and allegations against former Representative Swalwell are despicable and disgusting. I think it's also quite plausible, as you point out, Jack, that there were many other Democrats in this town on Capitol Hill who knew about his perhaps illegal behavior, certainly his disgusting and inappropriate behavior, and why were they silent for so long? I think those are questions that must be raised of these sitting representatives, including Mr. Gallego, and I hope that the journalists in this room will do their jobs, and the journalists on Capitol Hill will do their jobs to ask Democrats in power how they knew about such despicable behavior from one of their elected representatives for so long, but never said or did anything about it.
Katie, can I call you a DC insider? Is that offensive? Can I?
I'm in DC, but I'm not of DC. Okay. So I've been here long enough that I know what's going on. Unfortunately, I can walk around and go, yeah, this place is disgusting. So
all right, fair enough. So to that point, earlier in the week when this story broke, one of the things I kept saying was that in DC there are no secrets. Meaning, you go out to dinner, it's all staffers and it's the Congress people and senators. Everyone's talking to everybody. They're all out drunk all night long. The idea that people were keeping this a secret or that certain people didn't know or something like that, as Pelosi said, nobody had a clue about any of this stuff. That's just completely insane relative to the culture around DC, right?
It's absurd to say that. I mean, this has been an open secret on Capitol Hill for years, and it just shows how dirty the Democrats are willing to play. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was Eric Swalwell's mentor. She protected him when the Fang Fang scandal broke. Let's not forget that Eric Swalwell was on the House Intelligence Committee at the time. He was having this situation occurring. He was ripe for blackmail, and then he got a free pass on that, so he decided to continue on with overindulging in his new position of power, and the Democrats just kind of put these things in their back pocket until they needed to use them. And now all of a sudden they need someone to drop out of the California governor's race so that Republicans don't take the two top slots on the jungle primary ticket, starting to panic they're going to lose the governorship of California. And all of a sudden, Eric Swalwell and all of his dirty laundry that's been out in the open, really, but excused for so long, forces him to get out of the race. Now, I'm not saying that the accusations are false. The accusations against him are absolutely horrific, and I hope that if they're true, the women who he victimized get justice. However, his overall behavior was tolerated because he was willing to go out on TV. He was willing to go out and be the bulldog, the pit bull for the Democratic Party, especially in the age of Donald Trump over the past 10 years. So that's why this was excused. And for people in D.C. to say, especially Ruben Gallego, who's a senator from Arizona who is speculated to possibly have been in that video, went on a number of trips with Eric Swalwell. There's a photo of them on an official codel riding camels with no shirts on, to say that he didn't know anything and that Eric Swalwell was leading a double life is just absolutely laughable.
Right. And also, if somebody,
disrespectful to the people watching.
Right. And if someone is your best friend, I mean, they claim that they have been best friends. Like, you're going to tell me you just had no idea, and yet when the story breaks, you immediately throw them under the bus. Like,
well, especially when you're a dirtbag yourself. Ruben Gallego is also a dirtbag. So,
Mikale,
I was going to say, it's all these people that are up in arms right now about the Epstein files, and they're yelling at Trump or whoever else that might be allegedly named in the files, and who knows what's actually accurate in there and what's not. But they're up in arms and using this as political ammunition against the right, while their own people are being caught doing this, and they've kept quiet about it for years. It's this DC hypocrisy, which is why I'm glad I'm not a DC insider, and I never will be. So I will stay far away. I will stay far away.
You're safe somewhere in Wisconsin, apparently.
Middle America.
Let me show you this quick compilation. This is Ro Khanna, Adam Schiff, and Ted Lieu. I mean, this is like laundry list of just the worst kind of guys. And we had no idea. Nobody had a freaking clue what was going on.
Why were Democrats on Capitol Hill silent for so long when, in many cases, we're learning some aspects of this behavior, alleged behavior of Swalwell's, was an open secret, quote unquote?
Well, look, I had heard rumors that he was a womanizer, and that's one of the reasons that I endorsed Tom Steyer in the race and didn't go along with a lot of the other California establishment that was lining up behind Swalwell. But I certainly didn't know that he was abusing staff, let alone that there were allegations of rape or date rape.
I certainly didn't know that he was involved in any conduct along the lines of what has come out since Friday, and if I had, I wouldn't have gone near him with a 10-foot pole.
I had no idea until I read the San Francisco Chronicle article when it was published, and I believe Representative Swalwell did the right thing by resigning.
Guys, it's worth mentioning that there was a vote on whether to release the people who have been named in payments, congressional payments to all of these staffers over the years who have been harassed. And it's a crazy amount of people. 357 members of Congress, including Ro Khanna, decided to vote against releasing that information. Only 65 voted for it. Mikale, I guess none of this should surprise us. Like, this is the swamp.
Yeah.
This is the swampiest swamp in Swamp Town.
I don't want to hear another word from any of these people about the Epstein files, especially Ro Khanna. Because it's rules for thee, not for me. I'll use this sort of political leverage against my opponents, but when it applies to my team, I'm going to vote against transparency. I'm going to vote against accountability. I'm going to play dumb. I'm going to deny and deflect. This is the classic pattern. It's crazy.
Well, and on this exact issue, Dave, you mentioned the slush fund. So we had Anna Paulina Luna on my News Nation show on Wednesday night because she's the one leading the charge to get this list exposed of the people who have been using this slush fund, which is taxpayer money that was codified into law by Congress to pay out settlements for sexual harassment or sexual abuse cases committed by lawmakers on Capitol Hill. It's to the tune of something like $20 million, millions and millions of dollars. So she's working to get that list. Speaking of lists, that list released. But when it comes to accountability, she talked about, look, I don't care whose party it is. I don't care if you're Republican or a Democrat. If you're engaged in this gross, creepy, inappropriate, unprofessional behavior, especially with subordinates who are working for you, your staffers who are trying to come to DC and have a career, we are going to make sure that you're held accountable. I mean, Tony Gonzalez, who is a Republican, also resigned this week because there were threats of expulsion against him. He had an affair with a staffer who then lit herself on fire, committed suicide. Then you have Corey Mills, who is a Republican as well, also under fire for having a number of inappropriate relationships. And these things vary. They're not the same as the Swalwell accusations. His are certainly the most criminal. But her point is just, we're tired of defending, and I think taxpayers don't want their money going to cover up the misdeeds of people in Washington.
Right, and that's
DC.
not even
to get a little bit of power.
And that's not even to talk about the Democrats who obviously have ties with terrorist organizations like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and everything else. But just think how crazy it is that there is a slush fund set aside because these people are all harassed. Like, I don't have a slush fund at this company. If you harass this guy, you're fired. You don't get money to
I
walk
have
out
a slush fund. I'm just kidding.
It's just so insane. Like, I'm going to set aside some money every year so that in case these people start harassing each other, we'll just quiet them. It's bananas. I want to get you guys.
I'm going to take money from people in Kansas and then give it to people in D.C. to be disgusting.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, great.
Here's White House spokesman Stephen Miller talking to Jesse Waters about how actually all of this blackmail and the slush funds and everything, this is all baked into how the Democrat Party operates.
Has the president said anything about Swalwell? I don't know if he said anything. Has he been following that?
Why, has he had a bad week, Jesse? I haven't been watching.
He might be busy with bigger matters of war and peace.
Couldn't have happened to a better person. But look, here's the most important thing if we have 10 seconds on this, and I'm sure you would agree with this. The most important part about this story, and look, Swalwell is a scumbag. He is a terrible person, the worst of the worst, the lowest of the low, the most dishonest of the most dishonest. But the real story here is how the Democrat Party controls its members through blackmail. It's got a blackmail file on all of its politicians, and it uses them to leverage and control them until it's time to release it. That is how sick and twisted the Democrat Party is. That's the next thread we've got to pull out here.
Katie, I mean, that's quite an accusation. It doesn't ring untrue to me that when you see Democrats consistently take sort of crazy position after crazy position, that there actually might be a reason behind that, beyond the ideological lunacy of the left.
Yeah, and like people also from a policy perspective, Democrats are willing to tolerate a lot of this behavior, and they have for decades to get what they want politically. So, for example, everybody's kind of like, how did they tolerate Eric Swalwell's disgusting behavior against women when they claimed to stand up for women, especially women's rights, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I remember being at the 2012 DNC convention, and it was all about how Mitt Romney himself and the Republican Party was waging a war on women.
He had a binder. He had a binder
full of women. That women were going to have a war against them if Mitt Romney were to win the election. And during a break in between speakers, they played a 7-minute long tribute video to Ted Kennedy. And on it, they stamped the words, "Women's Rights Champion." And I was like, didn't this guy like crash his car into a river and leave this woman to drown, but then she suffocated to death because he didn't call the police in time? And the reason they tolerated that is because they're doing that so long as you vote for abortion.
Right.
You can do whatever you want to women. You can sexually harass them. Bill Clinton's a good example of that. You can sexually abuse them. You can leave them there in your car to drown so long as you support the policy positions that they want.
Mikale, do you think it's as bad in the Republican Party? I mean, Katie mentioned we got, what's his name? Was it Gonzalez in Texas? So there's some stuff going on with the Republicans, and Mills is probably in some deep doo-doo. And I have no doubt it's a both sides thing. However, the extortion portion of it seems more obviously bad on the Democrat side.
Yeah, I think it's worse on the Democrat side. If I had to guess, obviously, I'm not the DC insider, so I don't know. But if I had to guess, I mean, even looking at who these people support politically, like kind of what you said, where they're claiming to champion women's rights, but they're supporting abortion, they're supporting all these things that are very anti-women at the end of the day. They're also, championing, which I'm sure we'll get into this later, they're championing Hamas and Islamic radical terrorist organizations while also claiming to be feminists and pro-women and pro-women's rights, and they care about women, but they're tongue-kissing these radical Islamists who hate women. Like objectively and overtly. And so I don't think we can expect anything else in their private life if this is what their public life looks like. We don't see that as obvious on the right. I think there's a little bit more of a culture of obviously there's parts of it that are bad, I'm sure, but generally speaking, it seems like more of a there's a culture of actual decency and honor and conservatism that still at some level exists on the right that we just don't see anymore on the left.
Right. There's some level of belief in personal responsibility.
Yes,
At least like there's just something there.
Maybe not much left, but
right,
there's
maybe not much, but yeah, there's a little flicker.
They're not going to wave it in your face.
But you gave me a perfect segue to the next thing that I wanted to hit on, which is that this guy, Hasan Piker, who, believe it or not, I worked with at the Young Turks many lifetimes ago. He is one of the worst human beings I have ever come across. He is a multi-millionaire communist, quasi-Islamist who is telling his kids, and it's kids that are watching him on Twitch, literally how to build suicide drones, that 9/11 was good, that Hamas is good, that he has nothing, he walked the streets of China and said he has nothing to be proud of as an American. He went on one of these Obama bro podcasts, and here he is saying that Hamas is better than Israel. And actually, he would vote for Hamas.
When you say Hamas is 1,000 times better, do you actually mean that? Or is that a rhetorical move or like a solidarity signal? Like what?
I mean, it's all of the above. I do mean it. I think it's a rhetorical move because it frustrates a lot of people. I've also said I'm a harm reduction voter. I'm a lesser evil voter, and therefore I would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time.
Katie, I mean, what?
I go from laughing to like, this is super dangerous. I mean, this guy is on the record multiple times, dozens of times, calling for murder of people he disagrees with politically, just like a good Hamas supporter would do.
Yeah, blood in the streets, yeah.
And yet Democrats are campaigning with him for the midterm elections. This is not some guy who's on the far fringes of the internet. He is actively working with the Democratic Party on the campaign trail. And it just goes to show how far the left has gone to solidify this communist Islamist partnership that they're using, this anti-Americanism that they are not just shying away from, but fully endorsing and embracing. I mean, it's wild. He was at Yale University, I believe it was on Tuesday, talking about, again, which he said before, that the fall of the communist USSR was one of the worst things that's ever happened to the country. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that the Democrats are endorsing this guy.
So, Mikale, for those of us that don't want the Democrats to be in power or win the midterms or whatever, we should sort of want them to attach themselves to this guy, right? Because at some point, if you push the average person far enough with the rhetoric, for example, I'd vote for Hamas, who put aside Jews in Israel, they killed 47 Americans.
Right.
It might actually backfire.
For sure, yeah. I mean, you can't go around saying that I'm going to vote for a terrorist organization because I'm a, what did he say? Safety voter. I care about safety, or however he worded it. Yeah. It's obviously ridiculous to the average person, to the normal person who's not in this, this swamp that we mentioned in the first section. Most people are going to see this and be immediately repulsed. They're going to want to vomit. And so I'm not sure how this is in any way different than what they've done in the past, which is what led to them losing the last election. They were saying crazy stuff under Biden. They were doing crazy stuff under Biden. Kamala Harris was saying crazy stuff, and people rejected it. People rejected this woke mind virus because of it. And Donald Trump won. And I don't know why they're running the same op again. It's almost worse this time. This is worse.
It seems like it's going to its final form, which is the morphing into Islamism or jihadism or whatever you want to call it. But I want to show you this. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is absolutely wild. So the New York Times, it is pure propaganda that would make Pravda red in the face. So I think it was the day before that piece that we just showed you there where he sat down with the Obama bro, this Hasan Piker guy. There was a piece written by Ezra Klein, who's just kind of one of these limp-wristed Democrat, whatever. He wrote, and it was an op-ed piece, but he wrote, the headline is Hasan Piker is not the enemy. Then that piece comes out, that interview comes out where he says he would vote for Hamas, and then they subtly and quietly change the headline to this is why there's no liberal Joe Rogan. I mean, Katie, to me, that is the perfect example of everything. It's the perfect example of the media lying. It's the perfect example of running cover for these crazy leftists. Like, it shows you the radicalness of their positions. It's just got a little bit of everything.
So there's two things that are happening here. There's like the camp that are true believers, like the Hasan Piker wing, where they truly believe that Hamas is better and that the communism is better than capitalism. They're the true believers. But when it comes to like Ezra Klein, they're trying to kind of say, and the Obama bros, and they did this in this podcast, they try to kind of say, like, you don't really mean that, right? Like, you're just being you're exaggerating. Like they try to kind of sanitize it and make it palpable for the average person. And then the people are like, Hasan Piker's like, no, like I actually believe in terrorism. And they don't know what to do with it. So then they have to like change their position. They're kind of like, oh my God, you know? So there's the denial people, the delusional people, and then the true believers who are taking over the party.
Katie, at what stage do you think a guy like Ezra Klein gets beheaded? So he runs cover them for a while, but what do you think? It buys him an extra month when the revolution comes, or you think you get a couple weeks? What do you think?
With a name like Klein, I think he'll be first on the list. Yeah.
Ding, ding,
unfortunately.
ding.
Come on.
Yeah.
This guy's the Nick Fuentes of the left at this point.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. We saw this with Tucker Carlson when he interviewed Nick Fuentes, when Nick Fuentes was saying crazy stuff like, oh, I actually really admire Joseph Stalin. And then Tucker was just kind of like, wait, what? Like he kind of had this like, you don't really mean that, right? Okay, let's just move on.
It's like,
not
no,
really pressing him. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of, as Ben Shapiro says, they're laundering bad ideas to the American public so they can have this plausible deniability. So then when this Obama, mainstream Democrat gets questioned on this, he can say, well, I didn't actually say it. I tried to give him an out. I don't actually blah, blah, what you could see how this could go. It's the exact same thing we're seeing with the woke right. We're seeing this with the woke left. And I think most Americans are we're just tired of it. We're all tired of it.
I think people are starting to wisen up, and we just have to show them better ideas. There is one sane Democrat. He is a man who a few years ago had brain damage, and as his brain has healed, he has become more conservative. Obviously, I'm talking about Jon Fetterman. Here's Fetterman on Piker.
Do you feel isolated with your views? Do you think that, because the Democrats usually, they all stay in the same line. They get in line.
Well, it's like if you're going to embrace a guy that proud he loves Hamas, I mean, you're going to, I don't care who says that. If someone decides, I love Hamas, I'm never going to, partner with them.
Katie, how much longer till the Democrats go in full revolution mode on Fetterman? I mean, they basically got him in the Senate. I don't know how many sane Congress people they have. Nobody that really rushes to mind. And they've got half of Bill Maher at the media level, but they're coming for this guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When he's up for his seat, there's going to be a lot of money poured in from the far left of the party. The Democratic Socialists, for example, who are openly pro-Hamas, they're the ones who got Mamdani into office. They have a plan for the rest of the country. Everyone kept saying, oh, Mamdani is kind of a joke. And it's like, no, it's actually a test case for how to get these radical pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism, anti-American candidates into office. And Fetterman is certainly on the top of their list, unfortunately. I mean, it's crazy how normal Democrats have just gone extinct in the party, and the ones that are left, like Elise Slotkin in Michigan, for example, I wouldn't say she's super moderate, but she's not as far left.
She's not great, but yeah.
She's not great, but she's not like Hasan Piker, and she's changing her votes to appease this wing of the party. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, you really see that. You see these kind of, and this is how the radicals take over. And you can go back to what we talked about in the first section with blackmail in the Democrat Party, where they'll use things like that in order to force people to vote radical, even though they themselves don't actually probably believe this crazy stuff, but they'll go along with it anyways. It's like party loyalty is the highest value to these people, instead of actually telling the truth, actually being honest and serving the American people like what they swore an oath to do. It's just all about dollars and party loyalty and all of this. And at this point, honestly, I think that Fetterman's probably the only person in the Democrat Party that doesn't have brain damage. So
it's just like, if you were writing the script, it's just too obvious.
It's too good.
Yeah. Do you guys remember, there was this woman, I can't remember her name, maybe you guys remember, she was really into concentric circles. She knew a tremendous amount about geography. I remember at one point she knew that Russia was big and Ukraine was small. She was always studying maps of things. Do we have video of this woman? What was who?
Hey everyone, so I'm here in Charlotte since the start of Trump's war of choice. It's $15 more every time you fill up your tank of gas. The price of diesel has now gone up 80% since the start of the war. And you best believe that's going to carry over to how much you're paying for all the goods that are being transported on those semis. We've got a president who is paying more attention to what he thinks is in his best political interest and personal interest, as opposed to what is in the best interest of working people in America.
Katie, I'm pretty sure she was just sniffing the diesel there.
Yeah. Where do we begin with this? The woman who was pledged to prosecute oil companies is now going to say that we need oil and that, we actually have to make sure that people have access to things that cause climate change, in her opinion. I mean, it's just
not only that, she also pledged to not let Iran get a nuke. Remember, don't. She said the word don't. That's a very scary word.
God, yes. I'm so tired of Democrats also using this term war of choice. That along with it wasn't an imminent threat. It's like, okay, so do they have to be, pointing a nuke at your face before you get to call it an imminent threat? Clearly, she's thinking about running again. She talked about this week with Al Sharpton that she was considering going another presidential run. She apparently wants to go back to trying to do math by standing in front of California gas prices, not mentioning, of course, that California has the highest gas prices in the country because of all of the rules and regulations they put on the gas companies there, and also the taxes that they put onto everyday people who are just trying to get back to and from work. So I don't think this message is going to resonate, especially given during the Biden administration, the reason why things were so expensive at the grocery store and all that is because of gas prices. But that was something they inflicted on the country through their overspending and policies against the oil and gas industry.
Mikale, as I mentioned right at the top, I sort of got started paying attention to you when you started talking about this woke rights stuff, and you're now seeing this weird coalescence of these guys. It's the horseshoe theory of politics, basically that you now have these far lefties who are in bed with the far righties. Yeah. And right now, their main focus happens to either be a hatred of Israel or the West, or now of Trump and the Iran stuff and all that. So can you maybe take the other side of this forget Kamala for a second, but the people on the right who are sort of taking the same position on all of this stuff?
Yeah, you're seeing this weird emergence because, I think, again, to reference Ben Shapiro, I think he's been saying a lot of good stuff about this lately, where he put this video, or maybe a couple days ago, where he said something along the lines of, there's not a Democrat Republican as much anymore as there is a America. You actually care about America, the true essence of what it means to be America first, American exceptionalism, versus people that hate the United States. And so everything you're seeing, whether it's the woke right or the woke left, the trying to rehabilitate Adolf Hitler to the crazy stuff going on in the Democrat Party, it all serves one central purpose, that is to demoralize the American people, get them to hate their own country. That's why you have Kamala up there, talking about gas prices the way she is. She doesn't actually care about the consumer good. She doesn't actually care about the voter. She wants you to hate the current administration and, as a result, hate the country and become black-pilled, essentially, against the United States at large. And so I think this is what we're seeing on both sides. And they're trying to attack middle America. They're trying to attack the middle class as best that they can and get us to hate the country we live in. Because historically, that's been the problem with communism, is they've had a really hard time attacking the middle class. That's why it wasn't successful in the West like it was in Eastern Europe and other places, because we had a strong middle class. And so that is their primary target right now. So,
Americans have the attitude, too, of just like not having a grievance policy.
Yes.
Like most Americans want to make it on their own. They don't want to blame other people for their problems. They want to stand on their own 2 feet. And that's why you're seeing this argument of grievance policy, because it's so toxic. And that's what communism is. Communism is all about being jealous of your neighbor, and therefore the government has to control and make sure everybody has the same thing because people have grievances and they're envious of the success of others. The American family and the American people, especially the middle class, generally does not have that attitude. It's actually what sets America apart from the rest of the world, is to reject that grievance ideology. And you're seeing it infecting the discourse on both the right and the left.
I also think they're making just a tactical mistake here, because if your whole argument is Iran war bad because temporarily oil prices are high, then all Trump has to do before the midterms is one way or another get them low, which I think will happen. And then suddenly the argument disappears. Actually, here's Karoline Leavitt and Scott Besson on that.
The president's been very clear. Again, as the secretary just said, this is short-term disruption for the long-term strategic goal of the United States to ensure that the world's leading state sponsor of terror cannot obtain a nuclear weapon.
I'm optimistic that sometime between June 20th and September 20th that we can have $3 gas again. And as I said this morning too, we are going to be watching the gas stations, because they raise prices very quickly when when the crude oil prices went up. We hope they'll bring them down just as quickly as crude oil prices have come down, which they've come down substantially just in the past 10 days.
So, Katie, one of the things I've been talking about on the show a lot lately is how does Trump frame things? What has to happen, basically, before the midterms so that the Republicans win? And to me, if gas prices magically go down, that's what Besson's predicting right there. We get a wrap-up of the Iran war and an expansion of Abraham Accords, and I bet you something's going to happen on that over the summer. We're just seeing, right after tax day that people are getting more rebates and big, beautiful bill. The economy is going to start chugging along. So in some sense, should everyone just kind of calm down? For the people, for the panicans, should the panicans just calm down for a second?
Everyone needs to chill just for a sec. Stop blackpilling. There's a lot of good ingredients right now that just need to cook together over the course of the next couple of months for Republicans to be successful. Now, historically, it's very difficult for presidents to hold on to a majority. If the president were to lose the House, that would not be abnormal. That would be actually very normal. And then Democrats will, of course, use their time. Exactly. Democrats will then use their time and their power to impeach the president again, which they've openly stated. So that's something that voters should actually think about, too. Like, if Democrats win, do I really want them to spend the time impeaching the president for a third time? But there's a lot happening with the economy. The tax rebates are coming. Tax day was on Wednesday. You have GDP cooking along. The economy as a whole, which the president talked about on the campaign trail, is shifting from a government jobs program based economy to having the lowest federal government workers in something like 50 years. The government is shrinking, which means that the economy is more capable of producing on its own without having it taken away from them. So there's a lot happening, and 6 months in political years is a long time.
Unless you're in New York City.
Right, yeah.
Unless you're in New York City.
If you're in New York City, get out now.
Get out.
But don't come to Florida. If you guys are watching the Rubin Report and want to go deeper, join our community on Locals. We've built an incredible community, positive, engaging, and full of people who actually connect and form real friendships. You'll also get exclusive content you won't see anywhere else, including daily post-game shows where I break things down just a bit more. We even host annual meetups where we all hang out and have a good time. There might be some tequila involved. And here's the deal. It's only $5 a month, which is less than a coffee at Starbucks. So if you're looking for a community of like-minded people you can actually connect with, join us. Head on over to RubinReport.com and become a Locals member today. That's RubinReport.com. Mikale, can I ask how old you are?
30.
You're 30. Okay. So you're young. You're in the middle of the country. You're wearing a hoodie, so you're
I've got my camo hoodie. I represent middle. You can't even see my body right now. It's just a floating head.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm trying to illustrate. You're just kind of a normal guy.
For sure, yeah.
What else besides like the stuff that we just mentioned? Okay, so economics, maybe the war calms down, gas prices go down. What else do you think like the average 30-year-old guy in the middle of the country needs to hear or see happen so that we don't get the impending disaster that the panicans are screaming about?
Yeah, I think, and again, this goes back to what I've done a lot of writing on, which is how we got connected in the first place, is right now you're hearing a message identical to the woke left from these woke right people that a lot of us trusted at one point. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, you got on the list. We're all familiar probably at this point. You're seeing this message, this grievance, kind of what Katie said, this grievance study style message against the United States. And they're using the conflict in Iran. They're using the Israel conversation. They're using the economy or whatever it might be as the wedge to convince young Americans like myself that it's hopeless, it's lost, everything's doomed, and therefore the only proper solution is to make sure everything is torn down. And this is why you see people like Dave Smith, Nick Fuentes, and others openly telling young Americans, young conservative Americans like myself, to go and vote for the Democrat Party. They're openly saying this. And so in order for young people like myself need to understand that, especially with a conflict like this, like there might be high gas prices for a short time, but we have to have a long-term strategy. We have to look at the whole picture, and we can't get caught up in these internal grievances that will literally never end. That's what critical theory is. Yeah. All the purpose of why it exists is to create constant conflict. They want you in a perpetual state of conflict so that you revolt in violently against the entire system that you live in. And they're going to use every anecdotal set of information to try to convince you to do that. You just have to tune it out because it's not real life. Yeah. Like take ownership of your own life in any way that you can. That's the solution.
You know, I'm sure
if
you
you're
guys
constantly in conflict, you're not working on yourself.
Yes.
You're not meeting your own goals. There's a distraction from your own individual responsibility
get offline.
And greatness as an American. Yeah.
I mean,
not right
honestly,
now.
get off. Not right now during this episode.
After watching the show.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
No, but I always tell people that. Yeah, get offline for the weekend. You know, I do my August off the grid. Like, you have to connect to some of that other stuff because the disconnect between the rhetoric online and what's happening in reality just seems to be widening and widening. But to that point, I always like ending the shows, particularly on Fridays, so that people can roll into the weekend feeling good about things and not just doing hardcore politics. There is an incredible story. Like, you want to find like a great human being, a wonderful American, and someone that's educating kids that actually should be doing it. Listen to this story from the New York Post, and we're going to show you some video. Kirkmore, 60, charged at 20-year-old Victor Lee Hawkins, who was armed with 2 loaded semi-automatic pistols in the lobby of Pauls Valley High School last Tuesday afternoon, according to surveillance footage obtained by KOCO. The crazed gunman's weapon malfunctioned before he aimed his pistol at another student who begged him not to open fire. Moore, who has worked in the school district for more than 35 years, rushed to the school lobby to investigate the commotion. Hawkins was seen pointing his weapon at Moore's head and firing a shot, which struck the educator's right leg before he was tackled. The principal shoved the gunman toward a bench before getting on top of him while the terrified student fled. Hawkins admitted to stealing the gun from his dad and told investigators he wanted to conduct his own school shooting like the Columbine school shooters did, referring to the 1999 massacre that left 14 victims dead. Hawkins has been charged with shooting with intent to kill and other firearms-related charges and will appear in court on May 8th. Meanwhile, Moore said he's healthy and recovering after being hospitalized. Just watch this footage. Watch this. And obviously there's no audio here because this is closed-circuit television. Wow. Running at the guy, literally saving that guy's life, that kid's life, getting shot. He's 60 years old. And it goes on. We can, the reason I wanted to end with this is we forget that there are heroes out there. There are good people out there. It's easy to do the panic and doomsday or black pill thing, but it's not everybody. And let's find more of these guys, right, Katie?
Yeah, we need more good news, and guess what? There's a lot of it. So highlighting it is really important, and amazing that someone would risk their life to make sure that others are safe. So kudos to him, and we know that there's a lot more Americans out there every day, maybe not stopping a school shooting, but doing absolutely heroic things to help people in need and strangers who they don't even know.
Mikale, slightly strange to give you the last word about a shooting while you're in camo, but here we are.
Right, yeah. I mean, similar to what Katie said, I think it just goes to show that is like the American spirit personified. This heroic, I'm going to go sacrifice myself, potentially, for somebody else. That's a value that seems to be lost on a lot of young people these days. It's all about the self and self-help and self-preservation and me. That's what we constantly hear from the media these days and on social media. And it's like the reason why this country is so great in the first place is because we used to be a group of people that didn't think that way. It was about others. It was about serving others. It was about sacrificing yourself and working for other people for the benefit of other people. And seeing a story like that, I mean, that's exactly what this is. So, yeah.
On that note, everyone can get offline in 5, 4, 3.
Have a great weekend.
2,
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Sit down, make yourselves comfortable. And this week on the internet, fans of Sabrina Carpenter criticized her for mocking an Arabic call during her show at Coachella.
Is that what you're doing? I don't like it.
Man, she's even got that look when you try to mansplain how to drive to a chick. Which is oddly similar to the look that Arnold used to give Willis when he was up to one of his harebrained schemes. Speaking of Coachella, concert goers from around the world paid thousands of dollars to watch Justin Bieber play These Nuts on stage.
These nuts? Got him! Got him!
I don't even know what These Nuts is, but my guys told me that you kids out there like brain rot, so we gave that to you. And speaking of brain rot, rumor has it that Rosie O'Donnell will be a possible contestant for season 35 of Dancing with the Stars, even though judges are worried she'll hog up the floor. I mean, she's kind of a big deal. Lesbo. This week, Eric Swalwell resigned. An unhappy ending for a guy who apparently got a lot of happy endings. And with all these Swalwell accusers coming forward, I'm shocked not one has said, "Officer, he farted on me."
The evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election.
And that's a weapon of ass destruction. All jokes aside, these are serious allegations, and they're not something to take lightly, or after Taco Bell. You know, Swalwell was actually the one guy in Congress who literally looks like the dictionary definition of the word douchebag. In fact, I had Joseph over here look up the word on dictionary.com, and sure enough, this is what we found. Now that Eric Swalwell has dropped out of the race for California governor, billionaire Tom Steyer is projected to win the coveted seat. Yeah, this guy. I assume that was him with D's nuts. This shows, of course, that with a dream, perseverance, and at least $2 billion in the bank, you too can join crackers with attitudes. Oh, that's who that was. Okay, like them. Well, from crackers to crackheads, it was revealed this week that Hunter Biden is no longer living in the United States and is $17 million in debt. He's so broke that he's offering to fight Don Jr. and Eric Trump in a cage match for money. Of course, with that money, he'll likely buy a lifetime supply of ass pillows on Amazon. Is that not what same-day shipping is for? This week, Britney Spears checked herself into rehab after her latest DUI. And before going in, knowing she might be gone for a while, she made sure to post one more butt-slapping video on Instagram. You know, you may think that's in poor taste, but Eric Swalwell paid good money for that show. In other news, Madonna's releasing a new album, her first in 7 years. She says making the album made her feel like a virgin again, something she hasn't been since the Hindenburg disaster. And that's why I'm always grateful to do This Week on the Internet, because if it wasn't for the Internet, we wouldn't know half of this insanity, and guys like Eric Swalwell wouldn't get exposed. And guys like Hunter Biden wouldn't expose themselves. And that is This Week on the Internet. Now get off.